Okay, Podsters, this is it. This is your tipping point, your moment to take action or live with never knowing what could have been. We all have that thing that we know we are meant to do that scares us, that we're not sure we can do, and that we know we need a little help doing. My Do the Thing Fall Retreat is happening October 13th through 15th in where else? Cape Cod, in the tranquil seaside town of Truro, where I've hand selected a beach house for 9 like-minded women to get together and do the thing. You already know that there's a life waiting for you on the other side of this thing. And this powerful, intimate 2.5-day workshop is exactly what you need. If you don't do it now, you probably never will. Don't live with regret. Do the thing. Click the link, fill out the very brief application. Let's hop on a call because I want to make sure it's the right fit for you. Together, let's do the thing. Welcome to Unmute Yourself, the podcast. I'm Nancy Medoff, keynote speaker, best-selling author, executive coach, and equity evangelist who literally wrote the book on women in confidence.
And I'm Beth Knaus, creative copywriter who works with female entrepreneurs who are done putting safe and general content out there and ready to walk the fine line between honoring their bold voices and perspectives and honoring their professionalism. We are on fire and on a mission to inspire and empower you, and who are we kidding? The world, to speak up, stand out, and get your seat at the table. If you're looking for straight talk and a weekly shot of confidence, you've landed in the right place.
Beth and I met while collaborating on my #1 bestseller, Unmute Yourself and Speak Up to Stand Out. We hit it off and we knew right away that we needed to keep these important conversations going so that women around the globe will speak up and stop building our own glass ceiling. So here we are, coming at you weekly with a perfect blend of realistic strategies, actionable tools, and real life stories to bring these important and somewhat controversial ideas to life. Doing so with humor, kindness, and the occasional shenanigans.
Get ready to feel empowered and inspired to speak up, to stand out, and to build your confidence toolkit. Note to men or women who are not working in a professional capacity, we see you too, and we promise you the conversations here will inspire you as well. So buckle up, folks, because here we go. Hey, are we on? It doesn't say live.
It says live right there, upper left.
Oh, okay. Excellent. We're live and we are pumped up.
We're pretty jazzed.
Yeah. So, Podsters, you might have missed it, but last week we did our first LinkedIn Live and it was phenomenal. We got some audience feedback. So if you don't follow us on LinkedIn, you should, because I think every other week we're going to try to do it live so you can make comments and you can get involved in the conversation.
Would you like to know how you can get involved?
Of course.
Okay, so if you go to the Nancy Medoff, either personal or business page on LinkedIn, if you follow the business page, and I think you can do it with yours too, Beth. Okay, lot to unpack here. If you go to the Nancy Medoff business page, you will be notified and click on the bell. There's a bell. Any of our pages, any of our personal or business page, click on the bell and you will be notified when we're going live. And also every Thursday, we're probably going to move the time. Every other Thursday around noonish, we will be live. So basically look on LinkedIn and you'll get an alert is what I'm saying. Nice. And if you don't want to miss it and you're really hot on this, shoot us a note and we'll make sure we let you know personally. How do you like that?
Hey, that's snazzy.
We will personally let you know.
Absolutely.
What are we talking about today?
But today we're talking about self-sabotage, right? Which kind of ties into some of the things we discussed last time in the equity episode is, are you holding yourself back, right? Or are you doing things that are really kind of like, oh, well, gee, I really wanted that, but this happened or that happened. So I'm going to start off by saying, making excuses is definitely a way to self-sabotage, right?
But here's my question. When you're making excuses, do you know you're making excuses?
I think sometimes. Haven't you ever made up an excuse and said, "Oh, I really don't want to do this thing"? Well, I probably don't have to because I could say this,
I
right?
have made excuses, and sometimes it takes somebody else to point
Mhm.
out to me that I'm making excuses. Like
Yeah.
Beth. Beth might, or if I have a coach, they might.
Or if you have a stellar board of directors.
Personal board of directors in Unmute Yourself, the book.
That's
We
right.
talk about how to recruit it. But yeah, so I'll give you an example. So a couple months ago, I hired a business coach, and she said, "Why me?" And I said, "There are very few people who can call me out on my bullshit." That is actually the exact term I used. And I think you can do that. And she did exactly that and called me out on my excuses. So even
Mhm.
I, who am very self aware and very driven, I was giving myself excuses and they were not good excuses. So that is all to say that I was self sabotaging myself, which we will get to in a moment. What else do we have before we get into that, or do we want to get into that? Why are we
So
talking about this now, Beth? Why are we talking about this now?
we're talking about this now because, a few weeks ago, January 19th, I guess, is the general date where people who set resolutions don't make it past or something like that. The
Mhm.
majority of people don't make it past January 19th. And part of that is self sabotage, right? Is, oh, I'm getting in the habit of this thing. So I'm not really thinking about it anymore. And I'm not noticing my wins and my rewards. And, oh, well, maybe tomorrow I won't work as hard or I won't go to the gym or I'll just have that glass of wine or whatever. And then it makes it easier the next day, right? And you can say, oh, I deserve it. I did this already for 3 weeks. I can relax, or, whatever it is. I'm just giving that as an example. But think about it. Like, we come out of the holidays, I think, kind of refreshed and glad that we had all this, family time and social time and everything else. And then we're like, hit the ground running. And the pace we start at is not the same pace we're at by the time we get to February 1.
Right.
So
I call that, I love the beginning of January because it's I call it Beyonce energy, right? Like you think that
yes,
you're
that's what it
Beyonce, you
is.
can do
Yeah.
anything, right? And
Yes.
then by the end of the month, you're like, maybe I'm not. As you were talking, I was thinking, which often happens. Did you use the term holiday hangover?
I did not.
So we love that term. I think I made that up.
I think you did. I don't think I've heard it before. So I'm going to
Okay,
give.
so I'm just going to take credit for it. Okay. So it's the, the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, I'm going to do all the things wears off. And that's when discipline takes over for motivation, particularly with salespeople or business owners. This is where if you really want it and it is not a dream, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, it is a goal and it is part of your vision. If you really want it, that's where discipline comes in.
Mm.
And for me, discipline's not sexy. For me, I just wrote down really quickly as we were talking. I have sabotaged myself with my weight. I have sabotaged myself with my work. I have sabotaged myself in my personal relationships. And what does it come down to? I believe it comes down to not truly believing that what you are aiming for is available for you. It can't really happen, so I might as well screw it up for myself now so that I'm not disappointed down the road. What do you think about that, Beth?
I think that's great. And I also think for some people, it's the vulnerability that comes with getting what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then feeling like, what will you do if you then lose it? Right? That you wanted this thing, you worked for it, and you received it. And then what if you lose it? Right. I that was something I struggled with for a little while, was that, like, I was not somebody who publicly or out loud expressed joy, because it was almost like, let me just keep it under the radar so that nobody notices and says, hey, what are you doing with that good thing in your life? Right. And pointing out that I don't deserve it. And why would we think that other people might think that? Because secretly, maybe we don't think it ourselves. So, whoo, that was a little deep. I'm going to put my shovel down.
So while you're kind of pulling yourself back out of this deepness, which I agree with, and that itself was very vulnerable, I totally agree. And we talked about this, and we're going to talk about it in an upcoming episode about why many of us, myself included, don't share our success. And is it, to your point, Beth, is it about, are you waiting for the other shoe to drop? Are you saying, well, if I talk about it, then it's real, and if it's real, it's going to be taken away from me? I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. What we just talked about this a couple days ago, and we're not sure how it's going to come together yet, Podsters, but we are going to talk about this in that. Why don't more women say, I have a multi-million dollar home. I am able to go wherever I want and fly first class. And I have 3 luxury automobiles, and I have a masseuse on call. And this is available for you too. Here's what I did to build this wealth. Here are the sacrifices I made. Here's what I learned. This is available for you too. So ladies, go out and get it. Why don't more people do that?
Yeah, because I think that stereotypically we sometimes think of each other as being judgmental and snarky and gossipy. And I know that we've all had experiences with that, but if we want to change that, we have to start somewhere, right? And then you have to ask yourself, like, are you surrounding yourself with the right people? Because you can. Here's the other thing. This also ties into what we talked into last time. Not everybody's starting at the same place. So if I'm just coming onto the business scene and you've been in the business scene 10, 15 years and you have all this great success, I have a choice. I can either get totally overwhelmed by it and say, oh my God, I'm 15 years behind her and that will never happen for me. Or I can say, hey, this is just the beginning. I could learn from somebody like that. I could blow past that if I really wanted to. Right? I have these great people around me, and maybe I think I referenced this a couple things ago. Nancy has this really cool orange Jeep that she has at the beach, right? And so I feel that I am the type of person that will say, wow, that's really cool. What do I have to do if I want that orange Jeep? Because side note, then you find out how much you really want it, right? Because there are ways to get it, but am I willing to do what it takes to get it? Because that's something we have to ask ourselves too. Like, do I want a multi-million-dollar mansion? I don't. I just want to I could.
So here's this is awesome. You just hit it on the head. Do you really want a multi-million-dollar business?
Right.
Do you really? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't mean, I interrupted you. You go.
Do you really want what it is you think that you want? So let's take it out of the context of materialistic things. Do you really want fame? Do you really want epic success at work? Do I really want to be paid $100,000 for every speaking gig? Right. Do I?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know the answer to that question.
Right.
I know I could. Am I willing to do what it takes to get there? And if I'm not, am I self-sabotaging so I don't have to admit that?
Right.
Or am I going to do the work and say, you know what? Just because I can doesn't mean I will, and doesn't mean I have to.
Right.
The reason why I'm particularly hot on this is because it has taken me 3 years to create a speaker reel. So for those of you who don't know, it's like a sizzle reel. It's a 1 minute, hey, if you want to hire me as a speaker, here's what you get. Still not done, by the way. Still not done. It will be done hopefully at the end of next week. Anyway, I am a speaker. In order for me to get on the same stage as Lance Armstrong and the same stage as Mr. Wonderful and the same stage as Molly from, I forget what that movie was. Anyway, I can do it. I have somebody who has said, I will add you to my speaker bureau. It's here for you. I need a better speaker reel than the one you have because I had a horrible one. Well, one that wasn't that great. Sorry. So I have all the stuff right now. It has been sitting with me for 6 weeks. And I have not done what I need to do to get it to the editors for them to do what they need to do. So I have had to ask myself, why are you doing this? And I'm not making excuses. I've had the bandwidth. I could have made it a priority. Why haven't I made it a priority? And I think I haven't made it a priority because I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure I want that level of success. And that's hard for me because my whole life I've been an overachiever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's other things, right? Like we said some key words before, like what do you have to sacrifice? What do you have to compromise? Because when you go to that higher level, you're giving something up from where you are. When you're leaving where you are to go someplace else, you're definitely giving something up, right? Things adjust, and you have to know that you want that.
Right. And know if you don't want it, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. If you're a female business or a business owner, it doesn't have to be female, or if you are even if you're in corporate America, I'll never forget, I had a really great coach years ago. And when I was working for a company, and I said, all these promotions keep coming by me, keep being put in front of me, and I don't want any of them. And it's very uncomfortable for me. And she was like, you're used to always going for the next job and always going for the next job. You don't want that anymore. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a different place. And that was a really big adjustment for me. It was part of my identity. So, I remember the message is give yourself permission to be happy doing what you're doing.
Right. Right. And then if you really are, when you see somebody who's got the $1 million mansion and travels all the time and has 3 cars or whatever the heck the other person wants, you should be able to be happy for that person if you're really happy where you are. And it's okay to say, I mean, we've talked about this all the time, you can get into these programs with coaches and whoever, and it's, 10K months, 10K months. You know what? Like, I don't know. Like, if I get there, great, but that's not really what my goal is. That's not really what my goal is. And if I can achieve my goal before that, and I can do it not working myself into the ground, then I'm happy with that.
It's tough because I have, and I agree with you, I've always wanted to be the best at anything I do. Always.
Mm-hmm.
Always. So for me to not be the best public speaker in the whole world, as measured by,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how are you measuring it? Just because I'm not on the stage with Mr. Wonderful doesn't mean I'm not a better speaker than him.
Right.
In fact, I bet I probably am Mr. Wonderful.
That's right.
That's no disrespect to Mr. Wonderful. So it's how are you measuring the success is also another piece. We're unpacking a lot here, Podsters. There's a lot.
We are.
And
we're talking about big picture things, but I think that self-sabotage can be small things that kind of stack up.
So give me an example. I'm not disagreeing. I love your perspective.
Can be like, for instance, you and I have talked about clothes before and trying to wear clothes that don't fit us or don't feel comfortable in. I mean, what is it like for you if you are not comfortable in the clothes you're wearing? Like, I know for me, if I'm going to go to a networking meeting and I want to meet people, I have to love what I'm wearing. Otherwise, I'm not going to take up good physical space. I'm going to be covering what I'm wearing, feeling like I'm muffin topping it out. And right, I want to feel confident, but sometimes we put those clothes on anyway. That the ones that we don't love.
Well, and do we put them on anyway because we never went out and bought the clothes we do love? Because we're not happy with our current state.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I think that's when we can do, or overscheduling ourselves, right? Because we feel like I'm not enough, I'm not doing enough. We overschedule, and then we get burnt out or we get sick. We push ourselves over the edge, or you'll like.
So do you think overscheduling is a form of self-sabotage? And let me tell you why I'm asking you this. This week and last week have been extraordinarily busy. So somebody texted me today and I said, I literally do not have time to go to the bathroom. So I cannot talk to you until the end of next week. I was a lot nicer than that, but I'm overscheduled.
Do
Right.
you think I'm doing it to myself? Do you think that's self-sabotage, or do you think that's me just not doing a great job managing my time this week?
I don't know that it's necessarily either. I think that when you work for yourself, you don't have 9 to 5, right?
Mm,
Like you just came back from a trip, and yet it was, a business trip to some extent, but I know that you did get some time to relax and enjoy where you were. So, if you are someone who, okay, the next 2 weeks I'm going to be flat out, it's going to be crazy, and then you can balance that out and say, in the next few weeks, I'm going to take a couple of days off, then that's balancing your time, right? But
blending.
if it's something that you do over and over again to the point of getting sick or burnt out,
Yep.
then I think that that is not the healthiest way to treat yourself, or, not following through on your marketing plan, or, we talked about dreams and visions not too long ago. Keep following your dreams instead of being focused on your visions that are straight ahead at your, horizon line. And acting like a volunteer instead of a CEO. I'm on that volunteer thing, just so you know.
I know. Is it a jobby? Hobby job? Get it?
Right. Yeah.
Jobby? Yeah.
Is it a jobby? And you know what? If you have a jobby, own it. It's
Good
totally
for you. Right.
fine,
Great.
but then don't complain that you're not a CEO, because you don't want to be a CEO. And don't say that the
Well,
person next to you wants to be a CEO, because good for them. You don't want that. You want a jobby.
and can we look at the jobby as, for those of you in the corporate world, just so you know, a jobby is when you have a job, but I'm sorry, when you own your own business, but you treat it like a hobby. So those of us that own our own businesses call it a jobby. Perhaps we can reframe and say, yes, I run my own business, and I love the flexibility that it gives me to work when I feel like working and not work when I
Right.
don't feel like working, right?
Absolutely.
Versus I own my own business and I really can't get past the $100 an hour mark, whatever the case may be, right? So, or I can't grow my network. I don't understand why I can't grow my network. Sure you do. It's because you're not focused on growing your network, which is fine. We've
Right.
talked about this before, right? And own that.
Yeah.
Um, so you said a couple things I want to go back to. So when I asked you about if you think I'm self-sabotaging, that's a great point. The reason why I have not a minute to do anything other than focus on work this week is because I'm going away with a friend this weekend. I'm going away and I am not working when I'm not even bringing my laptop. So that's a really good point. The other thing I wanted to say, you said, are you overscheduling to the point that you're sick or burnt out? I go back to when I was feeling really burnt out towards the end of last year, and I think that was I think that was a form of self-sabotage because I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to get back into the swing. I didn't want to deal with it. So the reason why I'm sharing this, Podsters, is because you might listen to this podcast and think they have it together. They're such an inspiration. And by the way, we love that feedback. Love it. That's why we do what we do. Don't think for a second that we don't have our own issues and that we don't experience the same thing you're experiencing. The difference is we've figured out most of the time how to move through that, and
Mhm.
we're putting ourselves out there to share that with everyone, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. And so I was just thinking, a good boss knows what motivates their employees,
Hmm.
and they pay attention and they see if their employee is a little bit overworked. Well, when you're your own boss, that's your job.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
be in
Let's
touch.
talk about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Be in touch with your employees, Nancy.
Yeah. I wish you guys could see my face, Podsters, because I'm hilarious. I again say that this is my favorite podcast in the world.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's go. I want to go back to the self-sabotage with weight loss and substitute anything you want here. It could be weight loss, it could be health, it could be something outside of actual professional work. I find it fascinating that women and men. I find it fascinating that we continue to do it. I don't know one person out there, not one, who's sitting on a Peloton or going to an exercise class who hasn't had this cycle around every 5 to 10 years. I don't know anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anybody. And I do believe it comes down to beliefs. Do I believe that I can this I'm talking about me. Do I believe that I can wear a hot pink bikini and not be embarrassed and not be self-conscious and walk down that beach wearing the hot pink bikini like I own it? There's a reason why I'm using the hot pink bikini example. I digress. I was in Mexico and there were a lot of women in bikinis. It's Mexico. There were these vibrant, bright bikinis, and a lot of the women were not a stereotypical bikini figure. They were women who weighed more than one would stereotypically think that a woman wearing a bikini would look like. So this is all in summary to say, Podsters, Ann Beth, I went out and bought a bikini because I'm like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done not thinking or believing that I can rock a bikini on the beach just like anybody else.
Right. Right. I agree. I go through the same thing every year. I'm like, I'm so worried about my one piece. Does it look good on me? Because I can't wear a bikini. And then I go to the beach and I'm like, there are people who are different shapes and sizes than me that are totally comfortable in their bikini. And why am I not? Why am I not? Right? Our bodies are amazing. They do amazing things. And we should honor and love them for what they are at every stage.
Yeah, I know I went down a little tangent there because I really thought about this, and I thought about for my whole life, I've always wanted to wear one. Now, substitute whatever it is. I've always wanted to be on stage. I've always wanted to climb whatever. I've always wanted to become a pilot, whatever. My whole life. And I believe it's due to the work that we do and the work that we've done together and the work that I do with clients that I've said to myself, that's it. I'm done. I believe that I can do this. I believe I am just as worthy of wearing that hot pink bikini. By the way, it's a high waist bikini, so let's just, throw that out there. I believe I am just as I deserve that as much as anybody else, and I'm going to go get it. And I am. So this is going to be an interesting experiment.
Yes, I'm sad you didn't go with the G-string bottom, but one step at a time.
That will never happen. Never. They're not comfortable. Anywho, I want to go back to the business piece here because I also want to tie it back to, we touched on this, is what you're doing and how you're building your business or your career really what you want? Because if you're not doing what you know you need to do, aka self-sabotaging yourself, I would argue it's not what you really want. And that's a very difficult truth. And there's the few people that I know that I'm thinking about right now that they're struggling, and it's not until this conversation we've had that I've realized that I believe they're not sure that this is what they want.
Yeah.
So figure it out before you spend a lot of money on coaches and consultants and marketing or whatever you're going to outsource.
Right.
Figure it out, because it's a jobby is very expensive.
A jobby is expensive. Yeah. Yeah, if you're trying to take it someplace where you're just not going to let it go. It's like push and pull, right? To do that. And hey, you can change. You can change what you're doing.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
totally
scary. And I also think too, it's really scary if you have, or very difficult, not scary, if you've had people in your life who have told you for a long time, this is what you should do. This is what you should do. This is what you should do. And or I have a degree in this, I have to do this job, or, what will my parents think? What will my, women's club think? What will my husband think? Who cares? If you're not happy, do they want to deal with you?
So I'll tell you why this really resonated with me, and I might get a little emotional. So we're going to do an episode on bullying.
Mm-hmm.
So you said, you said people have been telling you, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. And also the people who have told you you will never do it. And the
Ah,
people who have told you, when I was very young, and I have to get used to telling the story. I didn't even remember the story until a long time ago. I mean, until uh, I worked it through with this coach. It's happened a long time ago. Somebody very, very close to me, somebody who should have supported me more than anybody else, told me I would never be more than a fast food manager when I was going to get my hospitality degree. So now there's nothing, I think we might have talked about this. There's nothing wrong with being a fast food manager. I'm not judging that. What I'm saying is, here I was saying, I'm going to go run a hotel. I'm going to go own a restaurant. And this person said to me, you're going to end up being the manager of a Ground Round. Remember Ground Round restaurant?
yes, with the peanut shells on the floor.
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
it.
Right. And think about, to me, that's bullying. At the time, it wasn't bullying. It was just an obnoxious comment from somebody that was very close to me and that should never have said that. And this is now 30 years later, maybe more, and I'm still talking about it, or I'm still thinking about it.
Yeah.
And was this part of, so I use this, and instead of using it to say, I'm not going to be able to do this, I used it to drive me. And I turned it around and said, I'll be damned if I'm not going to succeed. And I'll be damned if I'm going to blow it out of the water, which I did in my professional career for a very long time, and which I am doing again now. So so for those of you who have the people who are tearing you down, it doesn't matter why they're doing it. If they are tearing you down, you can either use it to fuel you or you can use it to dim your spark. And that choice is yours. And that's not an easy choice. And we're
Mm-hmm.
going to talk about that on an upcoming episode because it's a big deal.
Yes, it is a big deal. You're right.
I got deep too.
Yeah, look at that. This was a
Pretty
deep
deep.
episode. Woo! And on that note,
Takeaways? Do we have calls to action?
yeah, so I think, self-sabotage is a tricky one, but I
Mm-hmm.
think you just have to pay attention, right? I think you just have to be aware when you hear yourself talking yourself out of something that you know is positive or procrastinating or, I don't know what else could be happening that makes you start to self-sabotage small things, right? Maybe talking to a person who you know is negative and therefore you're going to be negative too. Or,
That's a great example.
yeah. So, just ask yourself, am I doing what's in my best interest?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So it's an awareness, right? I agree with you, Beth. I think those are outstanding takeaways. And I would ask our podsters to be aware of what you're doing and maybe start to think about, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this?
And hey, maybe some of our podsters have some ideas or ways that they avoid self-sabotage. And we would love to hear that because that would help everybody.
Here's how to do it. Thanks for bringing it up, Beth. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, which many of you are, and we don't mean to discriminate to those of you who are not, go to the bottom of the show. If you go to the show and it lists all the podcasts, scroll to the bottom. It will say go to episode website. Click on that, and boom, there's a little button right there, and you can record a nice little message for us.
So cool.
And we love that. We love the feedback, everyone. I was telling Beth, I got a few emails and DMs this week from people who said, we love what you're doing. Keep those coming, you guys. Those mean the world to us.
Yes, because you know what? Otherwise, we don't really know what the heck is going
No idea.
on.
Is anybody even listening? We don't know.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Also, really quick, International Women's Day. It's coming up.
March.
There's an international. Go for Beth. Go for Beth.
March 8th or 9th? 8th.
And there's a cake. There's an International Women's Day cake.
That's right.
I'm going to bake it. Beth's going to eat it. And maybe even make one of her own. It's a mimosa cake. If you want the recipe, go over to my buddy's website. It's called Thyme, Thyme, machinecuisine.com. She is going to do a whole thing about International Women's Day and this cake. I think it's kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah, by the way, this is like, I'm not I'm not getting, this is not like an endorsement. This is just go check it out. I think it's kind of fun. Because let's not take ourselves too seriously, okay?
Let's not.
It's a cake. Anywho, good stuff coming up, Podsters. We have judging is coming up.
Yeah, bullying.
We have bullying. We have soft skills. We have the so what concept.
Mm-hmm.
What else we got, Beth?
But we'd love to hear some other ideas.
We got the power of the why. That's a good one too. Yeah, we want to hear the ideas. So hit us up. Hit us up, everybody.
Absolutely.
I can't be sure, but I think we done.
That's a wrap, girl.
That's a wrap. All right. The other thing is Beth and I are getting together very soon and we're going to brainstorm other episodes, what else we want to do. This is the opportunity. We need your feedback. Let us know. We love you and we want to keep serving you.
Yep. Please.
Okay.
All right.
Peace out.
Adios, everyone.
Adios. That's a wrap, Podsters. If you were thinking of someone as you were listening to this, share it. If you nodded along and even shouted out a couple of yes, leave us a review. Please, please, please. If you want to make sure you don't miss next week's episode, hit that follow button.
And you can find us everywhere. And if you would like to learn more about us and exactly what we do, take a look in the show notes for our deets. See you
next week.
Podsters.